Hello guys, welcome back to the channel, and we're back again for another Pauper deck tech, and we call this deck build as the Golgari Gardens. It's one of the recent posted results in MTG Top 8 website, and hence the name called Golgari Garden because of the colors and this card, Colony Garden. So what does this deck kind of work around with? As the initial thought, you can see here it's like an artifact sacrifice effect, mid-range deck with a lot of spot removals here, some creatures only here with the 9, but goes well with maybe controlling the board and going in a card advantage mid-game up to the late game. So we're going to explore the card type distribution. We have 11 artifacts, 16 instants, 9 creatures only, 5 sorceries, and 19 lands. So with the starting of the artifact choices here is first up a copy of Blood Fountain. So this artifact does is creating also a token with a blood token, and then later on can be sacrificed to return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. So more of a utility card in this build. Then we have 2 copies of Campfire. This is just a 1 mana artifact that can pay 1 tap to gain 2 life, and you can also pay this one to exile, putting all commanders you own. But this not be the function here in this deck because this is a Pauper legacy format, so just only function to get you gain life, and maybe can be sacrificed later on to your instant effects that can require to sacrifice an artifact. Also, we have 4 copies of Ichor Wellspring. This is also an artifact fodder that can be sacrificed. As it enters the battlefield, you will draw a card, and more so when it's placed into the graveyard from the battlefield. Along with it, 2 copies of Limbas. This is from Lord of the Rings set. 2 mana cost, enters the battlefield, scry 1, draw a card. You can also pay 2 to sacrifice it to gain 3 life, and then when it placed into the graveyard from the battlefield, it will be shuffled back into its library. Then we have 2 copies of Titan Blade. This is more of a spot removal because of a sacrifice effect, but more so can be effective in the game with the crafting of this one. Pay 5 to craft with a creature. You can turn this one into a consuming space sepulture, wherein a beginning of upkeep you will have its opponent loses 1 life and you will gain 1 life. Seems this is more of a grindy setup kind of artifact, but early on can be just be able to you to headache effect a relevant creature from your opponent. Now for your instance, as you can see here, we have a lot of composition of spot removals. We have 4 copies of Cast Down, sacrifice effect with the dispute, wherein you can sacrifice an artifact or creature, and then draw 2 cards and create a treasure token. We have also a copy of Fanatical Offering. This is more a variance of that of the dispute, except that it will create a map token. 2 copies of Recurrence Bargain, the same effect, except that you will gain life equal to the sacrifice permanent spell value. Then we have copies of Snuff Out for a free spell to destroy target non-black creature, and 2 copies of Spinning Darkness with also the same kind of effect. It can deal 3 damage to target non-black creature and will gain 3 life, and the bypass effect of removing the top 3 black cards in your graveyard instead of paying the mana cost. So with the setup, sacrifice effects, and the spot removal, we have the creature lineup, which is also composed of wiping up the board basically. So we have 4 copies of Creep Rats. This is a 3 to cast 1/1 creature that you can pay X to deal X damage to each creature and each player. The only consequence that you need to pay only black mana for this one. So this was likely to be like a sweep effect or a lot of effect in the mid game against maybe aggro and other creature based decks. Then we have 3 copies of Avenging Hunter. This is more of like post sweep or post mass removal effect, where you to just cast this, it becomes a 5/4 trample, and you can also take the initiative as your card advantage. It also becomes a 5/4 creature, which can also finish up games quickly for this one. And we also have 2 copies of Troll of Casa Doom from Lord of the Rings set. This is more likely a 6 to cast 6/5 and can be blocked by 3 or more creatures, but at the early stage you can still have this one cycled to a swamp to search for ability to make sure that you won't be really to miss out land drop or any sort of mana source for this one. And since this can be some cycling, later on you can have this one crafted with Titan Blade, or you can use Blood Fountain to return it back to your hand. Now for your sorcery, much more so of spot removals and mass removals. 3 copies of Chainer's Edict and 2 copies of Drawn and Sorrow to make sure that no creatures would really come up the board for this kind of matchup. And for the lands, or basically we're fixing for black green. So aside from Butchukabog that are excel effect for graveyards, we have copies of Golgari Rat Farm, Haunted Mire, of course Kalni Garden for copies, a copy of Sunlit Marsh for Splash of White, and that Witch's Cottage also that can return a creature card, and more so of the Swamp, for a total of 19 for your lands. For the sideboard setup though, we need to check on why Golgari here would be the best choice for being a controlish while also being a sort of a resistant mid-game gameplay for this kind of deck. So for any setup of the deck, for example, we have a matchup against control or maybe counter heavy decks, we have 4 Duress to cope up with the discard to make sure that we can resolve our big spells. We have a copy of Life Goes On against Mono Red. Basically, you can still gain 8 life since you have a lot of sacrificing creatures. So sacrifice effects would gain you, make sure that you can gain 8 life. We have 2 copies of Silver Protection Blue. I'm not sure why they've chosen blue as the COP here, because maybe of the prevalent of blue based aggro decks. So you can have this one splash and use them to basically nerf more of the blue source damage that can be dealt to you. Also, we have 2 copies of the Glamours. So this is for the affinity matchup. You can have them shuffle to its library, a target artifact or enchantment at instant speed. Then we have additional 2 copies of Troublemaker Off that can also exile artifact or enchantment on opponent controls, while also having a 2/2 body that can maybe block or maybe attack for some chunk of damage. And we also have Weather the Storm. This would be another life gain effect for decks that has very aggressive or very high dealing damage matchup. So make sure you can still gain life by also controlling their board. And additional Drawn in Sorrow for any winnie matchup or token based matchup. So overall, we have a mana curve of 2.83 surprisingly, but you can check here that we are going with the mid game up to the late game. We're just sacrificing creatures, controlling the board, and later on winning with Troll or Avenging Hunter in your late game. And mostly this is composed of black with a little of green, which is only 3, but sideboard based. You can see here that you have a lot of green choices here, but mana fix for green will not really be a problem here with green producers of 11, whereas black is 19. And last but not least, we have your several tokens here. Blood token, map token, the plant token from Kalni Garden, and treasure token with an extra of the initiative counter wherein you will go into the dungeon of the Undercity. So I guess that's pretty much it for this Pauper Golgari Gardens deck. This is quite a bit of a good choice for maybe for a metagame based Pauper in your area, or maybe in MTG Online. You can try this one, as this is also one of the possible well-performing decks in the current metagame for the Legacy Pauper. And if you have any changes that we can make up to this deck, just let me know in the comments below, so we can also have a discussion of how this deck will work out. We can maybe have a slight variance, maybe adding more creatures whatsoever, as to have this one as a more of the improved version of core side for the Golgari Garden deck. So that's pretty much it for this deck. Thank you for checking this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and see you guys in the next one.